You can rebuild, and you will be able to look back in years to come and go, oh my God, wow, look how far I've come.
Does divorce have to be soul destroying? And I guess what you've just hit on there is that if you're able to emotionally navigate it quite, carefully, that you are keeping your nervous system calm, then you could come out of it with your soul intact.
Absolutely. It's that simple. If you don't look after yourself, you are not going to be able to look after your children. Or at least you will do a much better job if you are in your optimal space. And just carry on reaching out, carry on, talk about it, raise awareness.
Hi, and welcome to Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I'm an independent financial advisor and wealth coach. I'm the director of Evolution Financial Planning, who is also our sponsor for today's show. So welcome to today's podcast, which is Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I am an independent financial advisor, and thank you to our sponsors today, which is Evolution Financial Planning, which I'm the director of. Today we are joined by Liz Harrington. Hello, Liz.
Hi, lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I'm just going to give people a bit of a, I just not a warning as such, but we're going to have a really frank conversation today, right?
Yeah.
Good. So if you are triggered by the odd sort of not complete explicit swear word, then you may want to turn us down if children are in the room. We're going to be talking about, does divorce need to be soul destroying? Mm-hmm. So Liz is a divorce coach, and your new title is?
Someone called me a trauma detective.
Trauma detective.
And I was like, oh, and my business partner was like, yes, that's what you are. So yeah, I'm a trauma detective and a divorce coach.
So how did you get into the divorce industry?
So completely by accident, partly because of my own divorce. So, but I'm not one of those people. I think there's a lot of divorce coaches out there, sadly, who go through a divorce and kind of go, I'm going to be a divorce coach, while they're still going through it and while they're deeply traumatised still themselves. And I find that quite worrying. So I'm not one of those. I do have lots and lots of experience on the trauma side, working with people that have been traumatised for, well, absolutely anything when I started off. But then more on the financial trauma, money wounds, quite often from a breakup, not always, sometimes from a failed business or redundancy or something like that. And then I went through my own divorce and started doing divorce recovery work, because I said there's no way I can work with people that are heading towards divorce, because I'll just want to tell them to leave, and I knew I wasn't healed enough to help them through the process. I didn't know enough about the process because I was still going through my own stuff then. And actually my divorce at first was very, very simple and kind of good, but I can talk a bit about that later because it did turn quite bad afterwards. So I had quite a few clients on the divorce recovery side, and met my gorgeous business partner, Susie Giles, who sadly can't be here today. But then we buddied up and we formed Family Flow, the divorce collective, and haven't looked back. The last 18 months have been absolutely amazing. So, yeah.
Amazing. Great. So when it comes to being a trauma detective, what would you say is, in divorce contexts, the number one reason for, we're talking about generally women, but it can be men as well, being traumatised?
Mm-hmm. So obviously in divorce, divorce is horrendous. Even if it's a decent divorce, if you can remain friends-ish at the end, it's still a horrible process. It's very long, it's very complicated, it's very legalistic. Doesn't have to be soul-destroying, but sadly it often is. And no matter how well you think you're going to do it, and you're going to do Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris Martin, conscious uncoupling, that's great. And I did conscious uncoupling. I was very proud of myself. But now I realise, and I have written to the author about this, there is no mention of abuse in that book. And I think we all have this ideal that if we can just get along and still be friends for the sake of the children, and when that doesn't happen, it is soul destroying, and you feel like you failed. You feel like you failed your kids. You feel like a pariah in society. Sometimes it implodes through no fault of your own. Sometimes you are at fault. I think no one's fully unresponsible for a divorce. Like, I made mistakes in my marriage. I made some quite big ones, but it wasn't all me and it wasn't all him. And, in conscious uncoupling does talk about taking at least 5% responsibility, even if it's just 5%, which I think is really important. But that's not to say we should blame ourselves. That's not to say we should blame the other person fully. So if you can get through all of that, it doesn't have to be soul destroying, but so often it is, because people change through the process. Once you start talking about money, everything changes. You can get stuck on the kids, obviously, but I talk about there's divorce conflict, where you're trying to divide one house into two. It's difficult, right? Especially now, cost of living, especially if one party isn't working, or, it is difficult. But there's divorce conflict where you eventually get through that and you can build a life afterwards. And then there's divorce trauma, and that can still be traumatic, don't get me wrong. You still need healing for that. But then the other side is when there's abuse, maybe in the marriage, that usually nearly always carries on, very often gets worse in separation and divorce. And there's the marriages that were okay, but now they've reached the divorce stage, they literally just explode, and one person just basically loses their mind, which causes the other person to lose their mind. And it's just an absolute, I'll try not to swear, but a complete SHIT show.
You be you, right?
Yeah.
The reason I'm doing the podcast face to face is to be more authentic. No filters, no AI. It's a real conversation with real people that are on the ground doing the job, that can then help and deliver these messages to help more people. Yeah. So you be Liz. That's how I want you to be.
Okay. Well, I do swear a lot.
So that's fine. We've warned people. It's okay. As long as we've got that disclaimer, it's all good.
Yeah.
So for you then, and from a trauma perspective, it can be money. It can show up either they're quite innocently, someone's going into the divorce process like, oh, he's so lovely and sweet, and then all of a sudden there's a big change. Where did that come from? That can be even more shocking. Yeah. Or it can be the people that have had actually quite a hard time in their relationship. There's reasons why they're having to separate. Maybe the male doesn't or female, but often, let's just caveat, we're talking generally about women here, but I do completely accept it does happen the other way around. So just we haven't got to keep editing ourselves the whole way. But typically in our work that we do, it is with women that are divorcing from partners, and some of those situations are they are an abusive or economic abuse, financial abuse, or physical or mental, or not just verbal, but actually physical abuse as well. Yeah. So it can be a real range then. It's not one thing. No, there's so many different things. And I think we often gaslight ourselves. If it's not physical, it wasn't that bad. But the hurt and the trauma is still really deep. And, we have ladies, and I know this thing, I have been in physically abusive relationships and emotionally abusive relationships. And the emotional abuse sometimes stays longer. It's harder to recover from. It messes with your head more, because like physical abuse is black and white, and if it goes there, you've kind of crossed a line, even if you don't do anything about it for a while. I'm not victim shaming anyone, but it's easier to say, yes, there is no doubt that they did something massively wrong, but if it's only see, I always check my language, if it's emotional abuse or mental abuse or financial abuse, whatever, we question it. And as time moves on, you look back and you go, was it that bad? Was it really? And my first take home is anyone that's listening, keep a note of everything, because you can always look back on it. And when people are doubting you and you're doubting yourself, you can look back and you go, that really happened. And you'll also look back and go, okay, actually that happened and that wasn't that big a deal. But at the time it felt it, and that's okay too. But to just write everything down is really, really important. I totally agree with that. From my perspective, I've been with my partner for 20 odd years. I've actually lost count. I think it might be 25 years. Which our 19th wedding anniversary was last September. Congratulations. Thank you. But I was 19. I'm now 45. You change a lot in that time. Loads. And I'd say the only reason why we're still together is because we've evolved together. We've challenged each other and we've communicated. We always are really clear on our communication. communication, very similar values as well. So
Yes.
there's some fundamental basics that are right.
Absolutely.
But there were periods of time where I'd evolved and he hasn't. And there were periods of time where he had evolved and I hadn't. Because it's not always that easy putting the mirror up.
Absolutely.
And I remember having arguments at different points. And it's like, well, I'd have to just agree to disagree then, aren't we? That's just, every relationship has arguments.
Yes.
And I imagine, I know myself, I sometimes think, was it that bad? Was it that bad of an argument? Was I right? Was I wrong? And, the other person thinks they're right and I think I'm right. So you just have to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
So I can see that in any relationship. So then when you've got a situation where there is maybe additional trauma involved, or one person is maybe overreacted where they've sort of been more triggered than the other, then when do you draw the line where you're like, actually this is abuse, this is actually real trauma? Because there's a big difference between having a spicy relationship where you're having a bit of a row.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that happens in any relationship. I'm sorry, I don't know anyone that is in a long-term relationship more than 5 years that hasn't had a row.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, that would be strange in itself, wouldn't it? So when does it become trauma? Just because someone doesn't agree with you is not trauma.
Yeah, I think if it's like an ongoing pattern, so we've got to look out for patterns. If it's a one-off and there's a massive fundamental disagreement, and if you can agree to disagree, then that might be okay. Or it might be such a massively important part about, like, maybe, I don't know, where you're going to live or how many kids you're going to have or something like that, then you might need some help with that. Like, you might need to go to a marriage guidance counsellor. I think marriage guidance counselling is great with caveats. Don't go if it's abusive. You might not even realise it's abusive. It might be only in hindsight that you realise, oh my goodness, I never should have set foot in that counsellor's office because my ex just managed to hoodwink them and make them believe that I was the problem. So I don't want to go off on a tangent too much. You'll have to bring me back sometimes.
No, but you make a good point, because when someone's being gaslit, they then doubt themselves in the first place. They don't actually even realise they're being economically abused, or
they don't realise.
They don't realise that they've been, spent 5-10 years being, everything's just been the way, that's the way it is. Oh, he likes to look after me, or he doesn't, or he does this, or he does that. You just get used to things being a certain way, whether it's culturally or just, that's what my mum did, or, he earns all the money, I don't have anything, or, your own self-belief, in terms of your own self-confidence. Like, so many things can form part of that.
Absolutely.
That then you start to believe what you're being told, and you do have doubts. There are times where I had doubts, thinking, hang on a minute, am I going mad? Did he say it like that? Did he mean it like that? But when does it actually become abuse, I guess, is the question.
I think abuse is usually a sustained effort, and I'm not taking away people's responsibility. Some people might not realise that they're abusing others because they're so messed up and they've got their own issues and they desperately need help that they just don't realise. It's a bit like a drug addict, that they can't actually do anything about it. Narcissists, for example, if they're diagnosed as a narcissist, or people, which many aren't, because why would they go for a diagnosis? Why would they do that? It's a nonsense.
Their ego wouldn't allow that.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like, no, that, like, they don't have to be diagnosed. They can be showing narcissistic behaviour, or not. We call it narcissistic abuse. It's like when there's a pattern of it, and when it erodes your sense of self, your self-esteem, your self-worth, when you, exactly as you said, you start questioning yourself, gaslighting, cognitive dissonance, when it becomes pretty all-consuming, I would say that's abuse. And also, like, there is no, like, that's abuse and that's not. Some people are going to be more sensitive to things than others. Others might have a harder shell. Depends. This goes back to, like, how you're brought up, your relationship with your parents. If you've got childhood trauma, you're going to be more susceptible to other trauma in your life, because you haven't got the bedrock that we all need as children, the foundations to be able to do life well, unless you get the help and the healing that you need, that most of us need. So there's no, like, sort of cut-off point. I think trauma is stored in the body. There's no, people talk about big T trauma and little T trauma, and like, I think that's a bit of a nonsense, because you have lots of little T's, and over time they can have more of an effect on you than one big T trauma, like a car crash or, someone dying. That's awful, obviously. And of course that's trauma. But it's something that you can treat, something that you can really sort of hang your hat on and say, that's it. When it's lots of little things, it's really hard. And again, we doubt ourselves, we gaslight ourselves. And like, was it that bad? Am I being oversensitive? Especially if that's what you're being told. So, that's a really hard question to answer.
It's personal preference.
Yeah.
It depends on the person.
Yeah. I think if it's affecting your health, mental, physical, emotional, if it's affecting your health, if it's affecting how you're doing life, if you're spending more of your time wondering and questioning than you are feeling really safe. And I think that's the key thing. If you don't feel safe in the relationship, then that's a massive red flag. And I think so often, especially from our upbringing, we're taught that love is exciting and we're going to be swept off our feet and we're going to do all these amazing things. It's going to be really fun. And there's like, you can see like I'm moving my body. It's like, oh, this is really great. Well, that's a very similar feeling to, oh my God, what's happening? Like being hypervigilant, going like, well, this is exciting, but actually we don't realise it's not safe. And actually safety, this is why it often happens so later in life, especially for women, safety is being with someone and not having panic or paranoia or wondering where they are or what they're doing or thinking, oh my goodness, I must put that cup away before he gets home, or I must make sure the house is clean before he gets home.
Right.
It's that kind of thing that we need to look out for.
So it's our triggered behaviour off the back of those mini T's or big T's.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I have a row with my husband and I'll just tell him he's an idiot and then we're like, do you want a cup of tea?
Yeah. And that's great. That's like me and my daughter. She told me to go away in the car the other day. And actually it was my current partner that was driving her. And he came back and I was like, I did sort it out with her, by the way. Like we chatted and it's fine.
Yeah.
He's not used to that. Like he's used to an argument. Well, I don't know what he's used to. I'm not going to speak for him. That wouldn't be fair. But like with me and Izzy, we'll have a row and then we apologise and it's done.
Yeah.
And I'm really good at apologising. I really think that's such an underrated skill.
Yeah.
I think I'm really good at apologising.
I was going to say,
some people might say that I'm not.
There, Liz.
But it's such an important value to me. And I'm just like, people, if you just said sorry and just said, yeah, hands up, I messed up, there's no shame in that. Like, that's a brilliant skill to have. I'm trying to teach it to my kids. They find it hard. Actually, my son is really good at doing it. After a while, he has to calm down first. Is
not in the moment.
Yeah. And that's okay. Give people space. Like,
but you have to be vulnerable to do that.
Yes.
I always found that from a security perspective, I was unable to apologise.
Yeah.
Because then I would have to let my guard down and it wouldn't feel safe. Mm-hmm. And my partner was just saying, just say sorry.
Yes.
And I would argue around the houses about but this and but why and but the other. And he was like, that's all well and good. I hear all of that. But that little thing you did, that upset me. And he wouldn't say it like that because he's not, he's not into sort of personal development, but he's quite a well-developed person emotionally.
Yeah.
And he's very he reads philosopher books. Like he's into that kind
like
of thing.
Him.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a pain in my ass, but I do I love him to bits. He's great, and he's been on that personal journey from a very different perspective because obviously he's employed. He's not an entrepreneurial type, so it's a very different kind of more of a masculine kind of journey.
Yeah.
But he'd be sort of pointing it out to me saying you're not doing this, but at the time I was triggered by that because he was asking me to be vulnerable in a way that didn't make me feel safe.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was really complicated for me to navigate because I then had to move past the fact that he was attacking me. It wasn't actually that he was attacking me. So I think that your point around the continued emotional sort of triggers, and if you're not feeling safe, so in that example that was something I had to work on. That wasn't because of him. Yes, he was triggering me, but it was my shit, not his shit. Right?
Absolutely. And with my trauma detective skills, if we were having a client session, I'd be okay. Like, when was the first time you felt like that?
Yeah.
Because what I do is I create this jigsaw puzzle, and to start off with, we might not even have the corners. We might not have any of the edges, but we build those. and then we fill in the gaps,
Yeah.
and then we fill in it some more until we get this complete picture. And it's linking these little things, like that could have been something as simple as your parents never apologised, or
Oh, my dad, I'd say this quite openly. My dad has zero emotional intelligence. He is he's very reactive to his own emotions.
Yeah.
And therefore everything's a reaction. There's no sort of self-reflection. And they're Scottish, so no offence to Scottish people, but my whole family are Scottish, and you're not vulnerable. That's weakness.
yes,
So that was just like instilled part of my DNA.
yeah.
So I guess the question would be, when people are thinking about divorce, how do they start to remove their own bullshit from the process? Because there's a lot of grey.
Yeah.
But there are obviously people who are actually being traumatised
Yes.
and being abused.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's actually still a lot of mirrors being pointed back at you at the same time.
Absolutely. Well, we have a dream at Family Flow that everyone goes to a really good divorce coach before anyone else. Ideally us, obviously, but there are other great divorce coaches out there. And so we're really good at triaging. So we call it triaging, and we're like, okay, we need to deal with the emotions and how you're feeling. Like, it's really important to get therapy while you're going through a divorce. Even if you haven't got much money, we have a really low cost group that we have, and that holds people emotionally, as well as giving them the practical advice that they need. We're not lawyers, we're not financial advisors. That's why I say we're good at triaging. We're like, right, you really need to go and talk to you or to a pension expert, or which whatever. I know is you as well. But
just to explain, there are auditors for pensions, and that's something completely different to what I do. So do, if there's a pension sharing order, I can help them with the advice as to what should happen with that pension.
Yes.
But in a divorce process, there's actually more of a triage process where you'd get a full financial, and I'm teaching you already know, but this is for the listeners.
Yeah.
You actually get a report done. So I had a client once he had a pension, she had a pension, she had an NHS pension and a small little one in the background. He had a big one. And what was really interesting once I read through that report is that the assumptions that were made on hers were very ambitious, and the assumptions made on his were very low. And it was agreed with both solicitors that this particular firm was used. But I just found that really interesting, that already there was an inequality kind of unfairness there. So no, I don't personally do that piece, but I do look after pensions and give pension advice generically, just to explain your point. So going back to what you were saying, which is where you triage, you point people in the right direction.
Yeah. And most people need some legal advice, but they don't need to just go to a lawyer. Some might do. If you're in the lucky position of having a massive budget and you want the lawyer to do everything, great. But you're going to be spending a lot more money than you need to. So we work with women that are fully represented to women that are representing themselves at court, or we are not, as I said, lawyers or financial advisors. We know a lot about the process. We know a certain amount about the law. We perhaps, I shouldn't say this, but perhaps guide, not advise, guide people, and maybe sometimes more than we should. But if they cannot afford any advice at all, at least they've got us.
Yeah.
And we can also get them touch point advice, so an hour's legal consult, rather than a free 20 minutes that's really just a recruitment conversation.
That's exactly what we've also had in this month's series, a divorce consultant.
Oh yes, yeah.
Come on, and that's exactly what Ellie was talking about.
Yeah. She's got a brilliant
Elaine
platform.
Foster, so she's got a membership, but it's more where you can get more sort of on-touch legal advice.
Yes.
And that's exactly what she was saying, that a lot of people don't actually need to have a full-on lawyer doing everything, because actually some of it's form filling.
Yes.
And you don't really need legal advice filling out a form. So going back to what we was originally talking about that before that triage process, how do people start to recognise that it's their stuff that they need to work on, and how do they take themselves through that process? And then afterwards we can come on to people that are more trauma, the actual real trauma.
So, say again, how? Sorry,
So
my
that's
ADHD is coming up. Ooh,
Too many
so
things.
much to say. So much to say.
And I ask too many things. So how do people navigate the divorce process? Not necessarily because they've been traumatized, but just because the process is traumatic.
Yes.
And there's a lot of mirrors coming up.
Oh,
how do
right,
they
yes.
navigate that?
How do they realise what's their own stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just you have to try and be so self-aware. And divorce is it shouldn't, ideally it shouldn't be, but it is a bit of a fight. Like you're kind of fighting for who gets what.
Survival.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, totally. So you're not in the place of taking a step back and going, oh, am I being fair right now? You're like, I need to secure a stable home for the children. I need to keep my pension. I need to do this. I've worked really hard. It's not fair. She's going to take all my money. So being really, really aware of your triggers and getting help with them. And then also just learning. Like people don't learn. And we hear it all the time. He told me that there's no way I'm getting his pension. He told me, like, he's not a lawyer. He's your ex-husband, soon to be ex-husband. He doesn't know that stuff. Like, and so many women just believe their exes. He says he will only give me, and just the language we use. And I don't know, like my husband gives me maintenance, pays me maintenance. However, whatever word you use, it still sounds like he actually says that he regards me as an employee for his children, and that's why he pays me.
That's your.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. That's your.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Because I say like, no, you need to do this, and you need to fill in this form for school. No, that's what I pay you for. Literally, that's what I have all the time. So
my husband says that just to piss me off.
Yeah, see that as a joke.
It's an annoying joke, but
Yes.
he likes the reaction.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
giggles at himself by me doing it,
Yeah.
and then sometimes he goes too far. But in your scenario, he's doing that to intentionally, cause
undermine
upset.
me, make me feel like shit, and it used to really bother me. And now, luckily enough, now I laugh about it. And I just think how lovely for him to feel like he has an employee. Like what an extra level of ego that gives him. Bravo, Liz. Well done. You did a good job there.
I think it's also if they're still feeling the need to have that level of
This is 7 years later.
input, then that's more on them, and that's a reflection of them, right?
Exactly.
They've got to be the bigger person in the
Yeah.
situation, and
Yeah.
I know that's hard to do, because how do you detach yourself from that emotional connection where
It's really hard.
that's hard,
especially when it comes to money, because like he'll say things like, again, I'm conscious I might be going off a tangent, but he'll say things like, well, I bought you that house because it was my money that paid for it. And it's like, no, it's the money I got from our divorce, which was equally split. Actually, it wasn't, because I found out later I didn't even get 50%. But it's this narrative that if it wasn't for them, and that's
ego though, right?
Yeah,
that's just their ego.
Absolutely. And actually, if I'd carried on working, I'd be earning a shit ton of money in corporate now. I'd probably have a much bigger house than I've got now. So no, you didn't actually. But going back to your question, what can we do? I think the next thing is to inform. So I was saying, like, so many women say, oh, but he said this. You've got to get educated. So we have this thing, get informed, then get empowered, so that then you can take action. And if you don't know, then how can you know if what he's offering, the fact he's offering, like that shouldn't be a thing. You won't know if that's fair or not. So like, and what I always say to people, and I do normally say this because it is normally him saying, you can't have all my money, you're only getting 50%. But I know this happens. We do work with men as well at Family Flow, and it's quite often men that were not the breadwinners, so it's almost a role reversal, but not always, not exclusively. And I get it. They've worked really hard, and they've worked really hard to build this wealth, and they feel threatened because they're going to lose some of it. But what I always say, everyone signed a prenup when they got married. It was just a state prenup, and you have to understand what the law says. It's not your ex being a money-grabbing bitch. It's what she's entitled to legally. And especially, unless her career has kept pace with yours, and you've shared the childcare equally, 50-50, and you've done as many nursery drop-offs and pick-ups as she has, you've taken the same amount of sick leave off, or like unpaid leave or whatever, or used up your holiday when your kids haven't been able to go to school, unless if one of you has taken time off to raise the children or cut back on their jobs, you've actually been contributing to a pension for them as well as yourself, then there's an inequality and that needs to be addressed. And sadly, the courts seem to be getting further and further away, even though it's still a massive issue, from, they're getting closer and closer to 50-50, and that's appalling. And it's not okay. I get the concept of spousal maintenance. I get why we want to phase it out. But, we're putting the cart before the horse. Phase spousal maintenance out when women don't need it anymore. And it's not just I'm going to get spousal maintenance because I can. I don't think anyone says that. If women are earning a similar amount to men, which we don't anyway, even in exactly the same careers, we suffer and we lose out even if we don't have kids. So that level playing field isn't even there before we started. So after kids, the marriage is definitely not there. That needs to be addressed. And the biggest myth is, well, she needs to go and get a job. Yes, she might need to. And I think that's a tough wake-up call for a lot of women, and it's one that I feel really sorry for them for. But they've also got to appreciate many women are unemployable. I would not get a job now. I've been out the workforce too long. I never had a degree. Now, I used to work in HR. I'm looking at HR jobs just out of interest. And at one point I thought, I'm going to have to go back to work because the business was, after COVID, did take a massive dive. I would be going, I don't even know if I'd get an HR administrator job because they'd probably say I was overqualified. But I wouldn't get a management job because everyone needs degrees. I've not been in the HR world, so I wouldn't get, I haven't got the contacts I used to have, all those things. How would I walk into that business, that career again? It just wouldn't happen. I've got a lady at the moment, she's amazing. She helped build her husband's business. They've broken up, he's still got the business, and she's starting from scratch. That's not equality. Yes, she did get some money, wasn't equal, but she's got enough, but only because there are big figures involved. If it had been on a smaller scale, she'd be a bit fucked, to be honest.
So you described where you didn't get 50-50, and back then you didn't necessarily know what you know now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, mirror reflecting going on, even without trauma that's involved. They're worried about the kids, like you described, keeping a roof over their head, maybe work part-time, maybe work in a school, don't earn as much.
Mm-hmm.
There's all of that going on at the same time. So you just get what you're given, kind of thing.
Yeah.
What makes the difference emotionally, psychologically, from having a good outcome with a divorce that's fair for the lesser underdog in the relationship?
Sure.
What do they have to do individually to work through that?
They have to get empowered. So I say I didn't get 50-50. My ex would question that. He wouldn't question it. He would adamantly deny that was the case. But I'm using my own example because it's a very easy one to use. But I thought I'd got 70% when we first divorced, and I was so proud of myself. I was like, my negotiation skills are great. I've really, stood in my power and got what I deserved, and this is brilliant. And I was so proud of myself. And I was like, all that money mindset coaching that I do for other people, I've really taken it on board. This is my pride. I was so proud of myself. And then and I bought my house and it was all great. I thought, I got 70%. Not in a I got 70%. I was proud of myself.
Yeah.
And I deserved it because he's like,
doing okay.
He earns a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I don't, and very much then didn't. And then a few years later, it was all quite amicable. That was difficult. That was divorce conflict, but it wasn't awful. Fast forward 2 or 3 years later, and everything imploded. I broke up with the guy that I was seeing just at the same time as he met someone new. And I was in a really bad way. That was quite an abusive relationship. Obviously didn't realise until towards the end. But I was in a bad way. He was so kind and so lovely. And then to this day, I don't know what happened, but he turned. And he started threatening me with not paying maintenance, started saying all these horrible things about my house, the fact he'd bought it for me, all those things. And I thought, do you know what? Now I know a bit more about divorce. Shit, I didn't get a financial consent order because he'd told me, this is another myth never to believe, he told me, I will always look after you and the kids. I will never see you go without. You know, you didn't even need to say you can trust me, because I did. Even though I'd had to fight quite hard to get a 70%, you know, wasn't too bad. But he started saying this stuff. There was things that he used to pay, like school trips, that he just said, no, I'm not paying for that anymore. I pay you enough. I pay you enough. You should be paying for that. And suddenly our life was very, very different to what I thought it was going to be. And he was being really, really nasty. So I thought I need to get this financial consent order in place. And
could you just explain for people what
yes.
a financial consent order is?
Yeah. So there's 3 parts of divorce. There's a divorce itself, which actually makes you not married anymore. That's actually the easiest part. Then there is, you obviously have to sort out the children. And then there's the finances. And sorting out the finances between yourselves, like I did, it was all recorded on Zoom, it was all on a spreadsheet. That is not sorting out the finances. That's just having a very loose and groovy agreement that can be blown out of the water at any time, like mine was beginning to. So you need to get what's called a financial consent order. You know this, obviously, which is a legally drafted document. Actually, you can pretty much draft them themselves, but they should be checked by a lawyer. That's when you should have eyes of it, at least. And you should have advice from a financial expert, financial planner, someone that is going to look and see, okay, actually, for example, women always want the house because it's stability for the children. They'll say, I won't touch your pension if you let me have the house. Sometimes that's a really bad move. So it's all those things that's got to be considered. So it's a big job. It's a horrible job and it takes a hell of a lot of time and it's quite traumatic. So, but that process needs to be done. It needs to be signed off by a court, by a judge at court. You don't have to go to court. You're not going to court by doing this. You're just following the process. And if you don't do it, easiest example is if you were to win the lottery in 10 years' time, they could come back and ask for some of it. Probably wouldn't get half of it, but could get some. And you don't want that. And if your situation dramatically changes for the negative, you know, that it's just all up in the air. Everything is up in the air unless you do that. So do it while you can. Do it when you should do it. Don't leave it till 3 years later. Because when things go wrong and everything changes, people do change, especially when they meet other people and they get told by them or influenced by them. I don't know if that's happening in my ex's case, but, you know, things change. People's circumstances change. They don't want to carry on supporting you like they said they would because their feelings have changed. So just do it. You've got to get the financial consent order in place. It's
so what happened
important.
next for you?
So what happened next to me, so that's when I found out from him filling in his forms that I hadn't got anywhere near 70%. And I was more devastated about that fact than the figures themselves because I thought I'd done so well. And I felt like an imposter because I was using it in my marketing. You know, I did really well at my divorce. I can help you do the same. And suddenly I was like, I did fucking shit out of my divorce. Didn't even get 50%.
So was that the full financial disclosure, that process?
Well, we call it full financial disclosure. But also bear in mind, people can still lie in those forms. People think, oh, well, they're not going to. And sadly, even if they go to court, they can still lie. Not everyone does, but they can. I mean, they shouldn't.
That's what you have to prove. You have to sort of then have proof, right?
Yes, yeah.
So you need to have either documentation or you need to pay someone to be an investigator to look into it.
Yeah, you have to at least become your own forensic accountant and go through all the bank statements and ask for extra statements. Go through with a highlighter any strange...
Their bank statements.
Yes. Yeah. So when they give you what's called the Form E with the disclosure, all their financial details, if there's anything there that doesn't seem right, or you know that they had a pension or some investments and they're not on there, you have to question that. You have to ask for evidence. You know, I found an account, there was 2 pages of bank statements, and literally 2 pages in, I was like, well, there's 3 extra accounts here that haven't been declared. You know, it's an absolute joke. You need to check Companies House, make sure they've got no companies registered. They might have nothing in them. They might be worth nothing, but they might be. You know, you do have to become a detective. But actually, I wouldn't say it's fun, but there is a satisfaction of taking that power and going, oh my God, I'm finding stuff out. You know, and you can pay other people to do it, but it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there might not be much to find, so you might end up spending more than you find. But, and some things you're not going to be able to prove.
What if you haven't got the energy and you're just absolutely shattered from the whole process and you just haven't got the capacity to do it because of those money triggers?
Yeah.
I just been talking to a client recently. She's got a fantastic financial services background, worked in financial services firms before, but in HR. We're just reviewing her pensions, not going for a divorce, nothing scary going on. And she just found it actually quite traumatic filling out the forms for us.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just talking in normal circumstances, people can be, let alone when you've been in a traumatic divorce, which is hard work in itself to get to that point.
Yeah.
And then you've got all the other emotional baggage that goes along with it. How do people drag themselves through that?
Well, if they find me and do some EFT tapping on it, which is the stuff I was doing before I was specialising in divorce, I was doing like people, just as you say, fear of finances. I had a webinar called Fear of the Finances. We have another one now, but it's divorce focused. And really, okay, what is it about money that's so scary? I know it's all like societal programming and all of that. It's a lack of, we're not supposed to, and it's kind of mixed now because of the whole Instagram type thing. Everyone wants everything and everything has to be, super bougie. But there's a guilt to having money. So we don't like to sort of, we want to push it away. When I work with clients, we explore how they were brought up around money. We always make vows to remain loyal to our parents' struggles. Even if we're trying desperately not to, there'll be some kind of subconscious drawback to your parents' struggles. Or if they were really controlling around money, even though there was a lot, that will be impacting you when you're an adult, 100,000,000%.
So what would be a good EFT for someone to do? People that don't know what EFT is, it's basically where you're doing emotional freedom technique.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I'm teaching you to suck eggs here. But I'm just for other people's reference, where you would tap certain, they're called medial points.
Medial? No, they're meridian.
Thank you.
God, you put me on the spot there. I call them acupressure points because it is like acupuncture without the needles.
Right.
So we're just tapping on these pressure points around our face.
Would you be going like, I'm not going to let him annoy the shit out of me?
Yes.
Would be a bit more, maybe more positive in your language.
No, so that's a really good point actually. And that's why I think tapping changes is so different from talk therapy, positive psychology, all that science. Like, we're so often taught to be positive, and especially if you are down the sort of law of attraction route, if I imagine money and I love money, I'm going to get more of it. That's kind of true. It does work, but it's not sustainable. If you have a subconscious fear of money or hatred of money or whatever, rejection of money, usually rejection of yourself, then you need to be honest about that and what the tapping does. And people sometimes go, I don't really want to say all this negative stuff. We've got to get the truth out. It's like saying, I really hate, or I'm really scared of money. I hate that money has this control over me. Otherwise, all we're doing is putting a plaster over a massive wound.
So it's like, it doesn't go something like, even though I'm really scared of money. That's normally how a saying would go, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I will love the money that I have, and you then sort of put a spin on it. But you've got to admit the truth in the first place.
Yes, exactly. So it's kind of like a 3-stage process. It's the truth. We do the truth tapping, not to anchor it in, but to get it out. Mm-hmm. And then we can, when we're ready, and you'll naturally go to this, we start saying, well, maybe I could feel more confident around money.Maybe money isn't that bad. And to the point where maybe money can be my friend. Maybe I can have a great relationship with money. And obviously there's so much more to it, but in a nutshell, that's kind of it. And just really what the tapping is doing is calming the nervous system. It's releasing. If you think about your energy system, just like your heart and lungs pumps your blood around your arteries, if you're not healthy, mentally or physically, then you're going to get fur in your arteries, or you might have an aneurysm if you're under immense stress or whatever. Massively related to physical is massively related to emotional and mental trauma. Body keeps the score and all that. So your energy system is like that. We just can't see it, which is where all this disbelief comes in. But we're tapping to release the blockages in our energy system, to get rid of that trauma and to release it. Not just to talk about it. Like counselling is great, it's got its place. But if we're just talking about it, it's not going anywhere. You might make sense of it, but you're not releasing it from the body. And it can get to the point that you're just re-traumatising yourself just by talking about it over and over and over again.
Which I think happens a lot when I speak to women who are going through divorce. They find it very triggering having these conversations with me. And it's frustrating for me because I say to them, well, I can't really help you until you've got full financial disclosure. Now, I can talk about some ifs, buts and maybes and scenario A and scenario B and if this and but that. But honestly, it probably will just confuse you.
Yes.
I can give you an outline, but I'm not going to make you spend, £1,000 for me to produce a financial report on if, buts and maybes.
Yeah.
That's not me doing my fair
best work.
Fair on you. You need, and it might take you another 3 or 4 months for you to get everything, maybe another 6 months to get everything, but you need everything so we can know. I talk about it like a cake. You're baking a cake and you need to know what the ingredients are. We don't know what type of cake we're baking. So that sort of toxic positivity, which what you're referring to, you can't get through a divorce with all of that. But the show's talking about how, does divorce have to be soul destroying? And I guess what you've just hit on there is that if you're able to emotionally navigate it quite carefully, that you are keeping your nervous system calm, you're understanding what your triggers are, which none of that is it's very easier said than done. Then you could come out of it with your soul intact.
Absolutely, yeah. And even if it is soul destroying and you're literally I thought I'd had some dark days. My God, I didn't have a clue until I went through my divorce. And it wasn't the divorce itself, it was the post-separation abuse, mainly around the finances, but also that affected how he was with the children and how the children therefore were with me. So it was flipping awful. But going for literally at rock bottom, thinking, I don't know how I can do this anymore. This is just hell. Sometimes you need that really dark night of the soul, or dark nights, because it's generally not just one night, it's usually quite a few. And you can be at absolute rock bottom, but then you can rebuild. And so actually, if it is soul destroying, I hate people say, oh, look for the gift in it. But there is an opportunity to just go, do you know what? I can handle pretty much anything now. Obviously I caveat that with, death of certain people in our lives, and complete horror and trauma. But when you've been that badly treated, and you might still be being that badly treated, because post-separation abuse goes on for years, but you can, I'm not saying you always do, you can get to the point, if you put yourself first and start getting the help that you need, and I know you can't always pay for that, but it is available at very low cost, and there are some free options. Women's Aid is a great resource for anyone that can't afford anything. The doctors, free women's groups, that kind of thing. We have a free WhatsApp group and we support women deeply in there. You can rebuild, and you will be able to look back in years to come and go, oh my God, wow, look how far I've come.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot, but I do recognise that there's a greatest low will be as your greatest high kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about children for a second, because you could have full financial disclosure, you could have the financial agreement in place, so then it's clean break, great. 50-50 parental responsibility. But reality, even if they've been granted 50-50, in a lot of examples in that scenario, I still find that the male is saying they're going to be 50-50, but quite often that's not the case. And obviously, in some examples, they've done that because they want to see the children. Other examples, they've done that because they don't want to give any money over for child maintenance.
Yes.
So how can somebody who has just navigated all of that, and you're going through this yourself right now, so I'm asking you personally and professionally, I guess, is how do you navigate that ongoing relationship? If you've got young children, it might be a number of years before actually this person is no longer in your life. And I see little TikToks now and again of, someone dancing around going, what happens when your kids turn 18? Yes, I've seen that one, And I've seen unfortunately in male, I haven't seen it the other way around, but in male examples where they've turned the children against the mum. And actually there are examples where there's children not see it, often slightly older children, but they don't see their mum anymore.
It's really sad that happens, but it does happen. And there's, that I think what is kind of the classic accusation is parental alienation. She's turning the kids against me. What we don't realise is that's often in response to I'm being domestically abusive to her or post-separation abuse to her. And sorry, let me rephrase that. She's accused me of domestic abuse and or post-separation abuse, whatever. And therefore, I'm going to accuse her of parental alienation. And what she's actually doing is just trying to protect the children. And it's very, very hard to protect your children when most of us want our kids to have a relationship with their dad. But if that's not safe for the children, and if there's, and let's talk about extremes, like if your ex has raped you or abused you or other people or other children, like we've got men that are being given care of their children when they're paedophiles. You know, it's that the family court system is so disgracefully, vilely terrible. And if anyone wants to follow Dr. Charlotte Proudman, you will hear all about it. There's various other people, but she's probably the leader in the field. Like what's happening out there is next level, and thank God we haven't had many cases to this level, but that's what's happening. And so the classic thing is, oh, she's alienating the children against me. You know, we don't see the whole picture. And obviously people don't like talking about domestic violence. They don't want everyone to know what's happened. And if your kids are coming back from their dads, again, we're generalising, could be the other way around, but they're dysregulated and it takes you 2 days to get them back to normal and then they're off again. And you spend your entire life trying to regulate these poor children. They're coming back, you're their safe person. So it's like when you pick up your child from nursery, they've been the most golden child at nursery all day. You get them in the car and they're screaming banshees and telling you they hate you and they're hitting you. You're like, what have I done? It's that kind, like you're their safe person and they've been holding it together and masking all day or for however many days. You get it because you're their safe person. And, you know, how are we meant to? It's so difficult and I don't really have the answers.
Not rock the boat as well. So then you're
you
like...
don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to make it worse.
You don't want to make it worse. You don't want to be throwing accusations.
Yeah. I don't want to say anything. The kids are saying, you don't say, please, mum, don't say anything because you'll only make it worse. Like, oh my God, how do I do this? Like, social services, they don't see it because he presents well in front of them. You know, the school, oh, he seems really nice to me. We've seen you lose your shit in the playground because you're so upset. You must be the unstable one. You know, we know you've dropped the kids off crying. So what's going on at home in your house? You know, stuff like that. And you just like, it's so complex and it's so awful. I'm just like, can we just be kind and think of the children? And like, oh, I love my kids. If you love your kids, then you shouldn't be abusing your ex. And if like you can abuse, well, obviously you shouldn't, but like abusing the children directly is, at least it's obvious. I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying, but when it's so covert and you're getting to like when
via somebody else kind of thing, like you're basically abusing the children to sort of get to somebody else. Exactly.
I mean, I think I was very lucky. My ex never wanted the children. He couldn't have had them. He had a very, very busy job. He never wanted them more than one day in the week. And alternate weekends. Had he have done, I reckon he could have easily got them off me because he could have easily he did paint me as the crazy, screaming mental person that was always in tears because I was at that time. He made me a really unsafe person and I had to get a lot of help to enable myself to parent my children because he had destroyed me so badly and the kids were coming back and saying things, you know. It was there was never any rest. When I wasn't with the kids, I would get emails from him, you know, perfectly timed. So like Saturday night when I might have been going out or not staying in on my own, drinking wine on my own, watching telly. Downton Abbey saved my life, by the way. You know, constant efforts to destabilise you and just thinking, I'm not a good mum at the moment. I was a terrible mum. And I have stopped apologising to my kids now because they said, Mum, you've got to stop apologising. And my kids have said, Mum, I'm so pleased we went through that. And I was like, how can you be? It was so awful. And he's like, yeah, but look where we are now. And, you know, if we hadn't gone through that, we wouldn't be able to have these honest conversations, and I wouldn't understand about, abuse and red flags and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'd like to think my daughter especially I'd like to think my son will treat women with a lot of respect. There'll be trouble if he doesn't. But but like, my daughter is very aware and has got out of relationships. The relationship she was in, he was quite jealous. She knew. She didn't get out quick enough, but she knew, and that is why she finished it in the end, because she could see those red flags.
Great. You talk about your daughter. My daughter's the same. She's just a force to be reckoned with. Like, basically, if you're not good enough, then just step aside.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
She does. Yeah, and I think I've always taught her to have. They should be an equal partner. They should be adding value to you, not chasing them.
Yeah.
And it should be. I was brought up Catholic, and it was, you don't have children outside of wedlock. That's all my dad cared about.
Right.
Whereas what I say to her is, have children when you want, when you're ready.
Yeah.
But be financially independent.
Yes.
And I think we've been talking to Amy Rowlingson, which is all about your purpose and why. Mm-hmm. And some of my purpose in doing what I'm doing is about women being financially independent. Yeah. Now, we're talking about potentially women who aren't already empowered, who have gone through divorce. But my whole message to my daughter is that, so if you do get divorced and you have had children, that you are then financially independent. It will give you more choices. You'll be able to walk away sooner than maybe you can afford to, or you can actually challenge things. I think sometimes in some relationships people feel so stuck, they don't challenge things, so they don't see another way out, so they just put up with it, and then by then it's probably too late because we're not feeling brave enough to make some of those challenges.
Absolutely.
And then things go on, and quite often I don't think there's enough communication in those relationships. I think that's where a lot of my passion comes from when it comes to making a difference, so that the next generation, or women that have been through divorce, are then financially independent and not stuck in that kind of situation where they're not working.
Yeah.
Now, absolutely. I know a lot of people will say, well, they don't want to work, they want to look after the children. Great. But then, talk about the income that's coming into the household as a joint income, not his or hers.
Yes.
It's a joint income, like see yourself as a business unit, a partnership. Yeah. And then actually people get an allocated share from that joint income. It's not his income, not her income. It's a joint income. Yeah. And similarly, you would still be paying into the person who's not working. You still have a pension allowance even if you're not working. Absolutely. So you can still invest in your pensions. You don't have gaps in your pensions. So there's lots of things that I feel can be done to help navigate those situations. Yeah. And I just feel that was just an important message for me to share.
Totally. Yeah.
Now,
can I just jump in?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Can I just say, well done you being such an amazing mum. And your husband, such a great dad too, because in an ideal world, we want all our children to have the education that you've been able to give your daughter about financial independence, and obviously that's related to what you do, and from a very grounded, untraumatized place. So she's had it modelled really well, and if only I could have done that for my kids. I couldn't, and I know there's thousands of women out there that just say, well, that's not me, oh my God, really messed up my kids. I've messed up my kids, but they're rebuilding. I'll take that. We, as in me and my ex-husband, have messed up our kids. But I've got to earn enough money to pay for their therapy. That's one thing. So it's a big incentive. What was my point? They've been broken. It's been awful, but they are rebuilding as well. And they will be at the same place as your daughter, and they will have the trauma, but they'll also have the learning from the trauma. And that was what I was going to say. 100%. I had a lot of trauma growing up. I wouldn't be the person I am today without it. So I don't think wrapping kids up in cotton wool is the answer, or bubble wrap, or anything else. And she's 17, my daughter, she's not fully there yet. She'll still make mistakes, but that's part of it, of course. Again, it's how we learn. But when I was, so Emily's 17, and so when I was 14 weeks pregnant with her, I was made redundant, and I had a regional sales manager job. I was the highest producing and successful regional manager, and I look after a team of financial advisors and mortgage brokers. I was 28.
I earned more than my husband did. I paid for our wedding. I paid for our honeymoon. So, you know, I was financially in a better position than him.
Yeah.
He has then gone on to have a corporate career, and I was made redundant. And it was in 2008. My daughter was born. I was made redundant at the end of 2007. And anyone that remembers 2008, 2008 recession. So what happened for financial advisors and the careers is that let's say mortgage brokers went from like, I don't know, something like 60,000 advisors in the country down to like 25,000. I don't know the
Wow.
exact numbers because I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's that kind of equivalent.
Yeah.
So there were no jobs in financial services, basically. So I had to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
And when I did eventually get my business going and things were, you know, Emily was still a little toddler, it was really hard. Those first 5 years were really hard. And my husband was just go and work in a bank again, Becky. Why are you working so hard? Why are you putting yourself through this? My dad just sort of said, you know, this is not working. You're not earning any money from it. Just go and get an employed job. But I knew that I wouldn't have the financial, the flexibility and taking time off, but navigating around the children, and that I wanted to be there. I didn't want, because my mum wasn't around when I was growing up. No offense to my mum, I love her to bits. But I was brought up by my grandparents and my dad. So being a mum to me meant something slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wanted both. I wanted my cake and eat it. So I continued working really, really hard, and now I'm in a position that if my partner and I split up, yes, he still earns more than me from a trajectory, but I would probably say to him, you keep your pension because I've got my business assets. My business assets are actually worth more than his pension.
Yeah, amazing.
He's listening. He don't know that. But then I just say, okay, let's just split the house and then we'll split everything else. Like it would be as simple as that. And I would earn with some child maintenance, I'd be able to financially continue living in the house that we're living in, and it would be okay. Would we have the same lifestyle? No, there'd be adjustments.
Yeah.
But I was determined to have my own independence.
Yeah.
And I think
Good
that's
for
where
you.
a lot of my passion comes from, is because I saw it with my mum when she remarried.
Yeah.
And then her partner left her.
Yeah.
I saw it with my mother-in-law when she divorced. And I've seen it client after client after client after client. So that was sort of like I just had to hold on to what I wanted. I wasn't wanting to be that version. So I haven't got to hear from an easy trajectory in myself. So, but thank you very much for the compliment. But I just felt like it was important to share that wasn't like just a quick win. That was a lot of personal development that got me to that stage to believe in myself, to achieve those things. That self-reflection that you mentioned right at the beginning. No, I know that we could talk about our journeys and about all of this absolutely so much. So I just want to sort of bring the conversation back round. And this was particularly around being soul destroying, around the divorce process. So we've mentioned some positive things that people can do. They can regulate their nervous system. They can get the coaching and the help that they need to make sure they're empowered and understand the process. For those that are in much more abusive backgrounds, those that have come in a true trauma base, that's even harder for them to navigate all of that. It's not just a quick tap in and we're fixed, right?
Absolutely.
Is what kind of top tips? That sounds really like top tips for cooking your best omelette. I don't mean it in that way. I don't mean it in a fly away comment kind of way. But what top things would you recommend those with real traumatized background that maybe you've come from very domestic abuse or emotional abuse that's a much more heavier going? I'm not just talking a relationship gone wrong. What things could they start to do?
I think it's really important to have a team around you and to choose your team really wisely. So it is friends and it is family, but only if they're really good and supportive friends and family. I'll be really honest, I don't speak to my sisters anymore. They're really bitter and twisted that I got a nice house in my divorce. I'm like, I'm done with that. Wow. And I know.
But that says a lot more about them than it does about you.
Yeah. But that was another trauma that I had to get through. I was like, seriously, I've got to deal with this now too? Like, oh my God.
That's a lot.
But it's fine.
How are you still standing?
I do wonder sometimes, but actually on that note, like I say, what I went through was terrible and I did feel on my knees, but I do know it's so much worse for other people. And I think that's the key thing, is just because yours might not be the worst, or that there's other people out there. We have this a lot in our Facebook, in our WhatsApp group. It's like, oh, but I'm not as bad as so-and-so who said that yesterday. That just because you're not as bad as something that's worse than you doesn't mean that you're not in an awful place. And trauma, again, big T, little t trauma, it still has the same effect. So we've got to really recognise that, and not give ourselves the recognition that what we're going through is terrible. So it's getting the right team. It's the friends and family. I think it's a bit like when you have a baby and your NCT friends are like your best friends, and you might have a friend that had a baby 2 years ago, but suddenly you don't feel that close to them because they don't get it, because they're 2 years on, and someone 2 years on from divorce might not get it. Susie and I are in it every day, and we're still going through our own shit with our exes too. We've both been in court this year multiple times. So we're not like so close to it that we're not healed. It's just carried on for a very long time. Susie's in enforcement proceedings. So we're obviously we're working with women going through this every day. So we're close to it. We get it. And you need those people that are going through roughly the same at roughly the same time. And that might be the only reason you become friends, and that's okay. One of my best friends, I was introduced to her purely at school, purely because we were both getting divorced. And, we're still friends 7-8 years later, really good friends. And so having that team around you, friends, family, I'll stop talking about friends and family, professionals. So the legal people, yes, they're important, but do not use your legal team as your emotional crutch, as your emotional support, because it's too expensive to do that. And they're not experts. They went into the legal profession to be lawyers. They didn't go into the legal profession to be counsellors, to be trauma therapists. That's what I came into the profession to do. Get a divorce coach. Divorce coach, you might, depending on what kind of a divorce coach they are, you might need a therapist as well. You might need a trauma therapist, a somatic therapist to get it out of your body. That's what I love about Family Flow, because there's me and Susie. We've both got such a wide variety of skills. Susie's got the parenting. She used to be a parenting coach. She's got family therapy experience. I've got all the trauma background. HR experience actually helps a lot too. I'm massively passionate about all the financial side. And again, we can signpost you to the right people. So it's really getting a team around you. And it might be Women's Aid as well. They do an excellent program called the Freedom Program, which teaches you a lot about abuse, makes you realise, oh my God, this is what happens, and it's not just me. You do it in a group, which is amazing. Really, really supportive. I've done it myself. It's beautiful experience. Hard, but it's very educational. But again, didn't shift the trauma out of my body. So I still needed to do that work. And it's a lifelong, you're going to be on a lifelong journey. And you can be, right, that's done now, I'm just going to live my life and, all positive. But the trauma will catch up with you eventually. So, dedicate yourself to your healing. And that is also the best thing you can do for your children. If you dedicate yourself, it's like put the old analogy, put your oxygen mask on first. It's that simple. If you don't look after yourself, you are not going to be able to look after your children. Or at least you will do a much better job if you are in your optimal space. And just carry on reaching out, carry on, talk about it, raise awareness. I think there's a beauty about women that have been through it, that want to carry on helping other women and men, obviously, because then it gives some kind of purpose to what they've been through. And, and that's what keeps Susie and I going, definitely.
That was my next question, really, is what matters most to you in the work that you do?
Making a difference. Like when people say, I might get emotional, when people say, oh my God, I don't know what I would have done if I'd never have met you. And like people in our WhatsApp group, I wish this group had been around 6 years ago. Or I wish I'd found this group 6 years ago. We weren't around 6 years ago, really sorry. We wish you'd found us, but we weren't there. But we are now, and that's the important thing. So yeah, making a difference, like having those women that are just like, they're just in a completely different place. And they are healing, and they are getting empowered, and they are getting their financial freedom back. And way better than they ever would if they'd have stayed. Ever. And yes, like you say, a lifestyle adjustment, but for the, price of freedom, price of peace, and comfort and knowing yourself and your self-worth and self-value, that truly is priceless. So yeah, it can be soul destroying, doesn't have to be, often is, but it can also be soul making as well.
Amazing. Any lasting comments or messages for the listeners?
I think only that, obviously we have our free WhatsApp group. So the best way to reach us is hello@familyflow.co.uk. You can have a look at our website, familyflow.co.uk. But we do have a couple of free downloads that people can access. One is 10 Steps to Successful Financial Negotiations. And for any stay-at-home mums there, or primary carers, I should say, there's a little calculation in there, very rough and ready, but what basically you are saving the family finances every year by doing that role, which in itself is quite empowering. And then we've got red flags, financial red flags as well. And I meant to bring my little mini red flag in, but I forgot. So that's me waving my red flag. And that's.
Can you mention what one red flag would be?
So one red flag, and this really shocked me when I shared it in our WhatsApp group, and people were like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And is if you're with someone now, like you've through your divorce, you're with someone and they don't pay maintenance to their ex, or they don't pay for their kids, they don't see their kids, say that was a red flag. That at least needs investigating. That's a red flag. Like if they're not paying for their kids, why? Especially if you're going on lovely holidays and being bought presents and being taken out for dinners. And I would want to know, when was the last time your kids went on holiday with their mum? Mm. You know, why is she in a one-bed flat sleeping on the sofa, or hopefully not that bad, but like a 2-bed flat and you're in a 5-bedroom house?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. That's not.
Yeah, I'd be in a relationship. I wouldn't be in a relationship with someone like
that.
No,
I wouldn't be. But like, and obviously that example, I'm exaggerating slightly.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and the amount of women are like, oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I'm like, gosh. So, you know, intelligent, lovely women that have been through this themselves, we still don't recognise it in new relationships. No. Partly because we're not healed. We're so desperate to be loved by somebody else. I'm not one for saying you have to stay single for ages. I think it's an important part of the process to really get to know yourself. But I know you can't put a timing on when someone else is going to walk in your life. But I stayed 9 months, split up with my split up with my husband. 9 months later, met someone. That was nearly 2 years. And then I was single for 2.5 years because I knew I had to, you know, that was my dark night of the soul times quite a few.
Last question before I let you go. What have you brought into your newish relationship that you're like, I must not, or I need to do something? So what things have you learnt from the past that are now musts in your new relationships? Financially speaking.
Oh, financially, that's easy to answer. Respect. And if we ever lived together, we'd have a cohabitation agreement. If we ever got married, prenup. My kids are not getting married without a prenup. Everything would just be so tightly sewn up. Yeah, there is no way I'm giving up my financial independence ever again. And I wouldn't ever want him to either.
And on that note, thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in and sharing your story and being so open. I really admire people that are brave enough to come and talk about this story. It's not an easy thing to do. Much respect. So thank you.
And to you, thank you so much.
So I hope you've enjoyed today's show. This is Rebecca Robertson and this is Liz Harrington. We've been talking about how soul-destroying getting divorced is, and do subscribe to the show if you want to hear about what's coming up next. Thank you for joining us today at Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do subscribe and let us know in the comments any of your thoughts.